You mentioned Cicero. He's a fascinating figure. On the topic of Roman oratory, who was Cicero?
Cicero was a new man, so he's someone who didn't have famous ancestors. So he was at a disadvantage. And I think Cicero is really interesting for a couple reasons. One is he wrote an incredible amount. I think we have almost more words from Cicero than any other author that survive. And it's all kinds of stuff. It's philosophical treatises, it's books about how to be a good public speaker. He published, volume after volume of his personal letters to his friends. He published these things. So there's tons of stuff from him. And secondly, he's interesting because he lived at this incredibly important time in the late Republic when things were falling apart. But he seems to have been born with none of the natural advantages that all these other people had. So he was a lousy general. He didn't come from a wealthy family. He didn't come from a famous aristocratic family. He didn't have a lot of these advantages, but yet he ended up being right at the center of things, rose to the highest elected office in the Roman state on the basis of one skill, and that was his ability with words, his ability to get up in front of a crowd and persuade them of what he wanted them to believe. And oratory, public speaking, was absolutely central to life at Rome. There were just all these events where people had to get up and give speeches. So in courtrooms, at funerals, in the Senate, to the people of Rome, at games. I mean, just constantly there were these opportunities for giving speeches. So if you were good at this, that was a huge advantage in your political career. And Cicero was the best. He was arguably the best public speaker of all time, some people claim. And he lived right in this era, and he parlayed that skill with words into this very successful political career. He was one of the guys involved with all this stuff with Caesar and Pompey and all the other things going on, Octavian, Mark Antony.
And you've written, which is fascinating. It's fascinating when the echoes of people from a distant past are seen today. The same stuff is seen today, not just like some of the beautiful legal stuff that we've been talking about, but the tricks, let's say the shitty stuff we see in politics. So many of the rhetorical tricks you wrote, such as mudslinging, exaggeration, guilt by association, ad hominem attacks, name calling, fear mongering, us versus them, rhyme, and so on and so forth. Well, so I'm guessing it worked, given that we still have those today.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things Cicero did is he wrote at least 3 of these sort of handbooks about how to be a good public speaker. So we know a lot about that. We have his own speeches that survive, and then we have later people after Cicero who wrote about what Cicero did too. So we know a lot about what he did. And the key to Cicero's whole enterprise about persuading an audience, let's say either at a speech to the people or in the courtroom, is Cicero believed that people are fundamentally ruled by emotion. So if you can touch their emotions, all sorts of other things become less important. If you can get a jury emotionally worked up and fear, anger are particularly powerful there, then the facts might not matter, the truth might not matter, evidence might not matter, reason might not matter. Emotion is the key to everything. So Cicero used what I would arguably call a lot of tricks to get his audiences emotionally riled up. And you can just go through these, and they're all the stuff you were saying, name calling, mudslinging, us versus them arguments, ad hominem attacks. Incredibly sophisticated. All the stuff that we think of today as, very sophisticated techniques for, propaganda and persuasion. It's not new. People aren't coming up with that much that's new outside the realm of technology. Human nature is the same. Cicero understood human psychology. He knew how to play on people. He knew how to play on their emotions. And he would do I want to say hilarious, but they're sort of depressingly hilarious things. Like he thought it's important to use props. So he said, people are visual. They will respond emotionally to visual things in a way that just words alone won't work. So he says, an orator is just like an actor. And like an actor, he has to prepare his stage and use props and things as visual cues to stir up the audience. So, for example, once he was defending a man in a court case who had just had a new baby born to him, and Cicero literally delivered the defense oration for this guy while cradling his newborn son in his arms. And, you can imagine, oh, cute little baby, jury, how could you find him guilty and leave this cute baby without a father to take care of him? Another time, he was defending a guy who had a photogenic son, a kind of a young boy, and Cicero literally propped up the kid behind him while he was giving the speech, and again said, "Look at his eyes brimming with tears, thinking about his father, being punished. How could you leave this wonderful boy without, a father to care for him?" Another time, someone didn't have photogenic kids, so he propped up his old parents in the courtroom and said, "Look at this nice old couple. You won't want to take their son away." That kind of stuff. I mean, it's manipulative. Cicero, by the way, I should say, also had philosophical beliefs about defending the republic and such, but he wasn't above using these things. So even though he may have had altruistic or high notions of, what he was doing, he also wasn't above using these kind of rhetorical tricks.
And also, you mentioned to me that you studied the gestures they used. So this is one of those on the theme of extremely interesting details of life.
This was actually my dissertation, and it was my first book as well.
That's amazing.
Again, I tell you, I like practical stuff. And This all started with, I kept reading about people like Cicero giving speeches, in ancient Rome, lots of speeches. And they would give a speech in the forum with 10, 20,000 people. And the thought occurred to me, well, in ancient Rome, you don't have microphones. You don't have loudspeakers. So how does someone give a speech outdoors in a windy place, not acoustically sound to 20,000 people? They just can't hear you. And part of the answer, turns out, part of it's oratorical training. You learn how to project your voice. But some of it, too, is that the Romans actually had this system of gestures that orators like Cicero would use to accompany their speeches. And what I ended up doing is combining two types of evidence again. So I looked at the rhetorical handbooks like Cicero's, and also there's this guy Quintilian who lived about 100 years after Cicero, who wrote this long thing called the Institutio Oratoria, which has a description of all types of oratorical stuff, including about 40 pages on gestures. So he actually says, when you put your fingers like this, it means such and such. And it turns out Roman orators had a system of sign language that they would use to augment their speeches. But here's the fun part. It wasn't like modern American Sign Language, where a gesture means the same thing as a word. Mm-hmm. Instead, and this goes back to Cicero, a certain gesture would indicate a certain emotion that you were meant to feel when you heard the words. So it's like your body is adding an emotional gloss to your speech. You're saying words, and then you're indicating how you think those words should make you feel. And even more fun, the Romans believed that if I make certain hand gestures, you will almost involuntarily feel certain emotions. So if you're skilled, you can manipulate your audience by playing on their emotions. And this might sound, kind of weird or improbable, but the metaphor that Cicero himself uses is, he says, think about music. Everybody knows that certain musical tones will make you feel a certain way. So, think of movies today. In a horror movie, they're going to play strident, tense music. In a romantic scene, you're going to have strings, and it'll make you feel a certain way. When you hear the Jaws theme, you feel tense, right? Cicero said the orator's body is like a lyre. A lyre is a musical instrument, and you have to learn to play on your own body as a musical instrument to affect the emotions of your audience.
I think he might be onto something, especially given how central public speaking was in Roman culture.
And a lot of the Roman oratorical gestures, like I could probably do some, and you could probably guess what emotion they're meant to be. So, for example, there's one where you hold up your hands to the side and kind of push like this. Mm-hmm. So this is the gesture, and what that means is kind of mild aversion. I don't like something. Now, if I couple this with turning my face to the side, so pushing off to one side, turning my face away, it's a strong aversion. That's like fear or something. If I clench my fist and press it to my chest, that's anger or grief. If I slap my thigh, again, that's an indication of anger. So a lot of these make sense. I mean, they're kind of natural gestures. Now, some are really weird and artificial. One of my favorite of these is if you hold your hand up open and then curl the fingers in one one by one and then flip it out. So this sort of thing, that to the Romans meant wonder, which you sort of see. But again, if you've been raised in a societal context where you're used to the notion that this gesture means this emotion, when someone does it, you're probably going to feel that emotion.
It's like memes today. If it becomes viral,
you know what it's supposed to mean,
percolates
and
through the
has
culture
that effect.
and has power. I mean, and it's actually interesting that we don't use gestures as much in modern day.
Well, I mean, for me, I just love analyzing modern political figures in terms of their body language.
Yes.
Because how you deliver a speech is often more important than what you say. In fact, in the ancient world, the most famous Greek orator was a guy named Demosthenes. And once a guy came up to Demosthenes and said, "Demosthenes, tell me, what are the 3 most important things in giving a speech?" And Demosthenes said, well, they are delivery, delivery, and delivery. That even the most brilliant speech, if accompanied by a boring delivery, is going to be less effective than a terrible speech given in an engaging and exciting or funny way.
Speaking of modern day and gestures, what do you think of Donald Trump, who has these very unique kind of gestures? I think there's, I don't know to the degree to it's true, but he kind of uses these handshakes when he pulls people in, that kind of stuff. What do you make of that?
I mean, Trump gesticulates a lot, but it's a fairly narrow set of gestures. I mean, if you watch him for a bit, he kind of has the same small set of gestures. And they're not, I want to say they're not natural in that they're not kind of illustrating what he's saying. It's more just punctuation points. I think of his as more kind of these punctuation points for just going along with what he's saying. There are speakers who truly can use their hands and arms and faces creatively, and you watch them and it's really enhancing the speech. I mean, just historically, Martin Luther King, he's famous for a lot of good speeches content. He was a good gesticulator too. He knew how to use his body. On the other hand, Adolf Hitler was a phenomenal gesticulator. If you watch some of his speeches, even just like turn off the sound and watch them, he's doing all kinds of stuff and he's really emphasizing his points in a very creative way. And this is what's fascinating about oratory and public speaking is it's this two-edged sword. You can use these techniques for good, or you can absolutely use them for evil. So the very same techniques in the hands of, MLK, you say, this is wonderful, this is fantastic. In the hands of Hitler, you say, this is awful. Look, he's persuading a nation to commit atrocities.
I encourage people to watch the speeches of Hitler, the oratory skill there, to be able to channel the resentment and the frustration of a people and control it and direct it any direction he wants.
Yes.
Through speaking alone.
It's the visual embodiment of the words where he's talking about, Weimar Germany being taken advantage of supposedly and all this stuff. You're right. He's channeling the resentment of the people and using that to his personal advantage and for cynical, evil, really, purposes. But oratory is like that. It's the question I always end up asking my students is, after studying Cicero and all these techniques, I say, okay, this is great oratory, but do you like this? Is this good that this works on human beings?
I remember Noam Chomsky once was asked, why do you speak in such a monotone way? And he said, well, I want the truth of my statement, the contents of my statements to speak, that I don't want you to get deluded by me because I'm such a charismatic and eloquent speaker. The more monotone I speak, the more you will listen to the content of the words.
Right. I want you just focusing on the content and not being distracted. I'll tell you also with Cicero, one of the things that he and other people who write about Roman oratory do is to say, and you can do this stuff badly, in which case it backfires horribly. So you can have people who attempt to gesticulate. Again, modern politicians, you'll see this sometime where they feel like I'm supposed to be making hand gestures and they're terrible at it, and it undercuts it. And Cicero and Quintilian give some very amusing examples from ancient Rome. So like he says, there was this one guy who, when he spoke, looked like he was trying to swat away flies, because there were just these awkward gestures. Or another who looked like he was trying to balance in a boat, like in choppy seas. And my favorite is there was one orator who supposedly was prone to making, I guess, kind of languid, supple motions. And so they actually named a dance after this guy, and his name was Titius. And so Romans could do the Titius, which is this dance that was imitating this orator who had these, kind of comically bad gesticulation. So not enough gesticulation is a problem. Too much gesticulation is a problem. You have to hit the sweet spot. It has to seem natural. It has to seem varied. It has to conform to the meaning of the words, not distract from it.
Yeah, natural to your, like authentic to who you are.
Authentic.
Which is when people try to copy the gestures of another person, it usually doesn't go well.
Right.
You have to kind of, you have to interpret, integrate into your own personality and so on.
But gestures is a really fun.
It's fascinating.
So I enjoyed my dissertation a lot doing that, because what I was trying to do there was to literally reconstruct them. So to say, what were the actual gestures? And I did that by comparing the literary accounts of the handbooks with, again, Roman art, looking at statues of Romans and things, and just trying to say, okay, what were some of the gestures they actually used here?
And in that way, the people from that time come to life in your mind and your work, which is fascinating.
Well, again, it's this pragmatic thing. I want to know, okay, how does this work?